Hi there, my name is Kelley Cody Grimm.
And I'm Max Grimm.
And we are Creative Actors Lab. What we want to do is just talk a little bit about how you can bring creativity into your everyday life. Hey everybody, it's Kelley.
And Max.
And we are back again for another podcast. And this one...
Podcast 32.
32, yeah. So this one I think is going to be a little different than what we've normally done. And this is actually a piece that Max wrote, oh gosh, even before our youngest was born.
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe so. Basically, the story of this is I've been putting together some assorted projects, just like performance projects. And I have these briefcases full of writing that I have done over the years, going back a few decades in some cases. And I was just going through stuff. Looking for potential things. And I found this thing I wrote at the bottom of one of the briefcases. It's called Note to Myself. And it's basically a play for voices. This might be something it's nothing you would really put on a stage, but it would be in the form of like a radio play or a staged reading or something to that effect. It's primarily a very audio based thing. And I'm not really sure what part of my brain this came from. I think probably just looking at people and their relationships and when things tend to go awry, at least in this case, it's more things are going awry with the person in general, and that sort of spills out onto the rest of the world, and it spills out, most prominently on your significant other. In this case, the significant other is oneself, if that makes any sense. It's a few pages long, and
it's handwritten.
It is handwritten.
So we are videotaping this if you want to hold it up so people can see.
Yes, it is actually handwritten on notebook paper.
That is so old school, man.
And I think this has gotta be at least 20 plus years old that I wrote this, and I read it through a couple of weeks ago, but I've kind of intentionally not been looking at this because we just harp on the whole cold read. So what you're getting here is a pretty cold read from me, and so that being said, I will go ahead and start in on this. And if you have any words of wisdom, guidance, direction, questions, opinions, etc., so on and so forth, please voice them. Okay. So anyway, here we go, kids. I'm actually a bit nervous about this. It's a series of short monologues. It's basically personalities playing phone tag with each other, but it's all one person. Schizophrenic, multiple personalities going on here. So it starts like this. This would be, you'd probably hear this like being played back over like an answering machine or a voicemail, or, just in various ways. It would be like, you might hear this, like through telephone or electronic sort of communication. But I think it would switch up in these different monologues so that you would have like a variety of sound. It wouldn't be all just one flat sound. But anyway, all right. Enough of this falderall. Let's get down to priorities here. Okay. Number 1. Note to myself, just slow down. One thing at a time. The 1,000-mile journey happens one step at a time. You can do it. Just have faith. Keep smiling. Keep your pecker up and make it a great day.
All right. I will have to remember that.
Okay. 2. Hi, it's me again. Another note to myself. Just wanted to add to that last message. Remember that story about the wise old Indian? Well, you just think of that anytime you're feeling low. Okay? Have a great day. I love me. Bye.
And what is that story about the old Indian?
Isn't that a good question? I don't know. I actually don't know.
Okay.
I'm sure at the time that I wrote this, I knew exactly what I was talking about, but this is a very cold read here. And that was actually it's like, okay, yeah, what was that story? I don't remember. There's so many of them.
There's so many wise Native American advice and things like that.
But yeah, no, that's a question I have too. All right, number 3. Me again. Another note. I just wanted to say what a good time I had last night. You really know how to make me feel good. So soft and kind and sensitive. I know just how to drive me wild. I really like the new manicure. Can't wait for tonight. Kiss, kiss.
Oh my goodness.
Number 4.
Okay.
It's me. Don't forget to pick up the dry cleaning and a bottle of milk. Bye.
I'm trying to think the last time you ever picked up dry cleaning. The gallon of milk, yes.
Yeah.
But...
All right, hold Oh my, this is just cathartic here. Number 5. Hi, it's me. Note to myself, I'm not sure how things like this happen. Just a mistake, just an honest human mistake. I'm not gonna beat me up over this, but I have got to be more careful in the future. Watch the bank account so I don't bounce any more checks. It's not a problem. I lie. It's a problem. It's a pain in my ass is what it actually is, but it's okay. I'm not mad. No, that's a lie. I'm mad as shit. Just be careful, okay? Bye.
It's, this is kind of like a cross between a journal and then, where you could be like, ding, the next. But I do think it is, I think it's really cool. Just, where your head was at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if I was thinking of like Harold Pinter when I was right. I don't know. I don't. I really don't know.
I would not be surprised because I know Harold Pinter is a huge influence on you.
Yeah,
and I think in your writing, I'm picking up a little bit.
Yeah,
of that.
this may have kind of come from Pinter somewhere in my subconscious. Number 6. Hi, it's me. Pick up the phone. Come on, pick up the phone. I know you're there. Okay, fine. Note to myself, I didn't mean to sound harsh the last time I called, but I needed to make a point. This crap has happened too many times before. It's got to stop. I'm not mad at me. I'm mad at the situation. So, go on. Pick up the phone. Go on. Fine. Shit, fine. Don't pick up the phone. You're just trying to torture me with your silence. I can see through my own crap. Don't forget, I know me better than I think I do, so call me back if you want or don't. I don't care. Do what you want, bitch.
Oh, my.
Number 7.
Okay.
Pick up the phone. Okay, fine. Note to myself, I never fail to amaze me. Someone who is so intelligent and wonderful can be such a self-centered bitch. You don't want to talk? Don't. But hear this. Keep up the behavior, and you're going to wind up talking to yourself one day because I won't be there. I'm not going to take this silent treatment crap out of me. Now, pick up the phone or I'm going to get really mad. That's right. Keep loading straws on the camel's back. Click.
Well, yeah, trying to think, where we were, a lot of this is like making sense as far as like, the checks and, because what I think is really interesting is I think we all have interior monologues and dialogues with ourselves. Mm-hmm. In fact, I was talking to myself in the car as I was driving, going, okay, well, this is what we've got to think about. Don't be so hard on yourself about that because, so let's try to focus and let's try to do that. So I'm like trying to coach myself in the car and just, go, it's all good. But I think it's very interesting. And I think people do that in journals too. A lot of times journals are pep talks. I happen to listen to The Office Ladies and Angela Kinsey will read from her journal. And a lot of times she'll end with, okay, well, we'll talk more later. Or, okay, well, I'll let you know what I think about it. And it's almost like it's a second person. And it's so cute because it's Angela Kinsey. And oh my gosh, I know she's like one of your faves. But it's so interesting when she does read those journals and what was happening at the time, especially like she wrote at the very beginning of that. So it's interesting to go back in time and just see where you were and how you were responding to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that were going on, because this was written before Danielle was born.
I believe so.
Okay, so we still had little toddler.
Yeah.
Little toddler Amber. So yeah, new parents by a few years, maybe about 3 or 4.
Yeah.
But settling into that new parenthood-ish thing.
Mm-hmm. And I think we had just moved to Atlanta.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, we moved up here when she was 2.
Yeah, no, I want to say this was within our first year in the first house we ever bought.
Oh, yeah. The brown house.
Yeah. And if I remember correctly, I think I wrote all of this in one sitting.
Wow.
I think. Yeah, let me go on here.
Keep going.
Okay, number 8.
Number 8.
Will you talk to me? Stop making him out of a goddamn molehill. Pick up the phone. Please. Please.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then it goes on to, please, I'm so lonely without me. I have no one else to talk to. Tell you what. I'll work on your spending habits and you work on my temper. Okay? I'll calm down now. I won't do what I did last time that I got mad at me. I'm sorry and I learned my lesson, so please pick up the phone and talk to me. I'm afraid I'll lose me. Am I there? Am I gone? Please pick up the phone. Okay, fine. Note to myself, I'll probably be home late tonight. I hope I'm there.
And for those of you that are not watching on video, we have our little white cat, Vanilli, who likes to be in on adult conversations, so he's listening to this.
Yes.
And when you finished the last one, like you weren't happy with yourself, he was kind of like, Dad, it's okay.
Dad?
I need to rub up against Mom's laptop. Yeah.
Okay, and then finally... Note to myself, screw work, I'm coming home now and we're going to work this out. I hope I'm up to it because we're gonna have a confrontation. And then I have the notes, like slams the microphone or slams the microphone or drops the phone. Like a pyrotech explosion goes off. Then you hear like stomp, 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 and a door slam. And that's the end of it.
Interesting.
So, there you have it. I've not read this in 23, 4, 5 years, maybe.
And, well, I mean, I think what's so interesting about that is I think we all sort of feel that way with ourselves sometimes. It's like, where am I? Am I really here? Am I being my authentic self? Or am I just kind of falling into what society wants me to be? And then I'm getting really frustrated by those expectations because I'm not even sure what my authentic me is anymore. And I think that's really cool that you wrote it down. I mean, you voiced it in writing. And
yeah.
And okay, so as Max in 2023 is looking back, what would you say to the young man who was writing that?
One thing I've noticed is it's not just me that does this, but when people self-talk, they'll either say, I am this or I am that, or I am good at this or I am not good at that, or they'll talk to themselves saying, you were good at this or you were good at that, or you were not good at this. So it goes back and forth of, you in the self-talk, are you speaking to yourself as yourself, or are you speaking to like this removed part of your personality, part of your psyche, and you're saying you.
Oh, that's
yeah. And I think I mean, I could probably say a lot of things to my 25-year-ago self. I keep coming back to, and I've said this with students, particularly like new kids and new people, compassionate self-discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what you have to cultivate. That's really what you need to really make your life not hell.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's going to be plenty of people out there who are going to criticize you, and fairly, unfairly, they're going to give you, praise that maybe you deserve it, maybe you don't. Mm-hmm. And you don't have any control over that, except how you respond to it. I think the thing I've become so conscious of over the past years is self-talk. And just, how do I speak to myself? Mm-hmm. When I've done something wrong, or I made a mistake, or I made a bad decision, or I've just done something really good, or I'm pleased with the way I'm progressing in something. How do you speak to yourself? I think that's something everyone really needs to be conscious of. I don't remember really what was going on at the time. I mean, it was so many years ago. I think to answer your question, you have to be mindful. You have to kind of sit back and do an appraisal of when you do talk to yourself. Mm-hmm. What tone of voice do you use? How do you address yourself? Mm-hmm. Are you hitting yourself on the forehead, looking in the mirror, going stupid, stupid, stupid? Or are you patient with yourself? Do you BS yourself? Mm-hmm. Do you blow smoke up your own rear end? Yeah. How authentic are you? How are you when it's just you and you? Mm-hmm. There's nobody criticizing. There's nobody listening in. There's nobody saying, "Oh, you shouldn't talk that way to yourself," or
march right in there and apologize to yourself.
I think that's what I would say. And that's really, I don't think I would add on to that. I remember like a lot of the shorter pieces by Samuel Beckett. They're what's called a dramatic capsule. So
I remember the term dramaticule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's really what that is. Pieces of theatrical writing like that really appealed to me, just like those really short stories that kind of sum it up inside of 5 or 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. That was something else that was just, I was writing things like that at the time that, just like short film has always been a very interesting thing to me. How do you tell a whole complete story within a very short, finite expanse of time?
And I think a lot of writers, I have heard that is, for them, they feel like they do have to pack so much in such a little bit of time. Sometimes it takes them longer to write like a 10-page short story than 10 pages as part of their novel, because that's part of a larger narrative. Mm-hmm. And then when you've got to condense it and have a beginning, a middle, and an end in 10 pages, how do you really massage that? And I think for a lot of writers, that's pretty daunting.
Yeah. And that to me is like just that kind of writing, that short to the point, but you just packed so much in there with just this very economical bunch of words and phrases. Mm-hmm. I think there's just the whole less is more thing has always appealed to me, particularly when I was doing any kind of writing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's where that came from. I mean, it's just, I had forgotten about it for decades, and I'm just going through my stuff, looking for, pieces of writing to put into these one-person monologist type of performances, and there it was. And that's something else I will say also is radio theater. I loved radio theater. I remember listening to radio theater when I was a little boy. On the little transistor radio that my mom had that sat in our kitchen in the 1960s, and just hearing those things. I remember a radio station back in Miami when I was maybe about 10 years old. They were playing that was WIOD 610 AM.
Yes,
I remember they would play Fibber McGee and Molly.
Oh God. That comes actually way before our time. You're talking 1920s, 1930s.
I want to say that was the 30s.
Yeah.
30s, maybe possibly the 40s. I'm not sure.
Maybe.
But yeah. And it just, the thing for me is with a piece like that, you don't have any visuals.
Mm-hmm.
And that really makes the listener imagine. It kicks in their visualization, and they sort of create their own visual aspect of the thing, which is personalized for everybody who listens to it.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who listens to it, they get engaged, they get compelled to hear the story, and then but being that you're not giving them the visual aspect, they have to provide it for themselves, and it creates people having to use their imagination, which I really I think is so important for writers. It's like, you write something, but don't give it all to the audience. You have to have them come up with stuff on their own, and the story's going to be different for every single. It's going to be personalized for everybody when they have to be a participant in it.
And well, and I think what's so interesting is everything old is new again. Because with podcasts now, people are listening to different stories. Sarah Wayne Callies, who played Lori on The Walking Dead, has a wonderful podcast that she has written. That one is all about a massive earthquake in LA, and an island pops up about 20 miles off the coast. And it's just, what's amazing is if she actually had to film it as a show and do everything, it would be ridiculously expensive. And when they first conceived of it, it was during, the beginning of COVID and then 2021, where people were still, you couldn't really do films and things like that, kind of just as we're coming out of the strike. But what she was able to do was ship equipment to people and then just have them go using a software called Riverside Squadcast. And so then people were able to do their parts, and then you had a sound engineer that put it all together. And, again, when you're kind of looking at this as a brand new island and there's all these people coming, and then you've got ships, and then there's like one point where there's a massive explosion. If you had to film this for this particular explosion, I don't want to give too much away, but I do recommend listening to it. I don't even know what the cost would be to film something like that, but
exorbitant. The
sound effect and the reaction and the sounds and everything, I had my own visual effects. I had my own pyrotechnics in my brain going,
yeah.
And that's what's so cool. That's what, I think voices and radio and storytelling on there. And, what they tell you is sometimes the podcast will become shows. People will hear the podcast and go, oh, you know what? I'd like to do the visuals with this. But I think for, a lot of aspiring storytellers, you can start with a podcast. And if you have good acting and, people who are able to translate that vision. We've actually done 2 kind of story podcasts. We did, and this was during COVID, kind of did the same thing with our students, did Sophia's Carol. And then we also did War of the Worlds with a group and put that together, which was really, really cool. And just, it felt very much old school. And then going back to, what Orson Welles had written. And what was really cool, the irony of War of the Worlds, and I think they kept that in the movie as well, was the thing that killed the aliens who were invading was a disease that they did not have the immunity for. And I was just like, whoa, this is like so perfect for our times right now. Just as we were, you're in a room of people, somebody sneezes, and everybody at that time was going, oh my God, is that a death sentence for all of us? And when you think back, that was only like 3.5 years ago. So things like podcasts, what you did find during the actors' strike was people could do podcasts because that was not a struck entity, so you could be the person who was writing stories and bringing your friends in. There's there's a lot of really good podcasts out there, but one of them was Say More with Dr. Sheila. And and that is a really brilliant podcast. Amy Poehler plays Dr. Sheila. And there have been times, I will warn you, do not listen to that when you are driving or if you are drinking something, because you will start to laugh so hard. You may double over or you may do a spit take. I was listening to the park the other day. Something came up and I was drinking water, and luckily it was at a park. I did a spit take. But that's kind of like the golden age of where we are right now in some ways with podcasts. Like I said, everything old is new again.
Yeah.
People are listening. Grim and Mild does a lot of really cool podcasts and things like that. So, there's just so much up there to really hit. And then, of course, you've got Audible books and things like that. And I think just fundamentally, people really, from the time we were little kids, and people read us stories.
Mm-hmm.
People told stories. I'm starting a series right now called Evie Spills the Tea, and I'm a British queen who's talking all about like the days when things were put all together. But for so many fables and things like that, these were oral traditions and oral stories, Aesop's fables and things like that were passed down and passed down and passed down. And then depending on the culture, it changed. Every culture has a Cinderella story. And there's just variations on how that goes. Charles Perrault, who lived in the late 1700s in France, is the one that gave us the glass slipper and the fairy godmother in his version. But, getting back to your piece, there's just so many universal truths in there, I think. Yeah. We all just we don't give ourselves enough grace.
As I'm getting older, I'm getting better at it, but I was my own biggest critic. I mean, teeth and claws out. And I've gotten better over the course of time at how I speak to myself, and how I try to. What I try to do is just kind of constantly evolve into being the best version of myself. I could be quite harsh on myself.
Oh, yeah. I think we all can.
Yeah. Well, some of us are harsher than others, and I think also one thing I do remember, something that had preceded my writing this was, I remember we did. I had lost my dad under terrible circumstances, and then had to go through a lawsuit. The last 6 months of the lawsuit were horrible. It was just a nightmare, and I went through and just when it was all said and done and everything was settled, we just got out of South Florida and moved up here. And I think there may be a certain amount of residual kind of grinding of my own gears in that. I will say one thing also, just in terms of radio theater, when you and I, just before we got married and slightly thereafter, we were doing that live radio show on public radio in Miami. It was on Wednesday nights at midnight, live old-fashioned radio, the Pandemonium Midnight Uprising.
Yes, that's still my resume.
And I just remember, kind of getting in the studio, and you got the engineer on the other side of the glass, and we got this microphone, and we're all gathered around, and and we have actually paper scripts, and this has got to be 1992, 91, 92 that we were doing this. You have to be careful about turning the pages so you don't hear the page turn over the microphone. You have to take off any kind of, rings and watches and jewelry that you might bump and it goes clink, and you can't have that. And just the whole bunch of us kind of like gathering around the microphone. I remember I used to take my shoes off, approach and go away from the microphone. And there was all of that old stuff. And I just, honestly, I look back on that still to this day, and it's like, I loved doing that. I remember just having such a good time. The people who were involved with it at the time were just really cool, and it was fun, and we were doing
it was
live.
a funky thing, and ratings were good, but it was just more, we're getting together with friends and hanging out and being very silly on the radio, and people enjoyed that.
But we were doing it really well. Voice has always been my thing, and I remember getting cast in things where it's like I'd have to have the big booming voice, or I'd have to be like Axl Rose or something like that. And I remember one of the guys in the group started calling me Pipes. And in rehearsals, like I would have to stand like several feet back from the microphone, otherwise I was going to blow out everybody's speakers, and it was cool. It was just I really enjoyed doing that.
And here's the beauty of so much of that is your phone. I'm holding this up for the people on video watching this. Your phone's got a really good mic in it, and for some of these, like again, for we have not worked on Riverside or Squadcast, so I can't like sit there and go, oh yeah, go ahead and do that. But for the first part of our podcast, we were not recording it on the Blue Yeti. I would do it on the phone and run it through Adobe Audition. But you have that. You can do voice memos. You can do things. When we did Sophia's Carol and War of the World, people would record off their phone and they would send it to me. And then I'd work with it there. But, it's kind of like the same thing that I tell my students when we do exercises like the library is like, you don't need a whole lot to create. No. You can sit down. There's free screenwriting software. There's voice memos on your phone. You can download other apps that can help with your voice that, so there's ways that you can create that don't cost you anything. And again, it just makes you feel so good. And just, with you reading that, I had written a one-woman show called Blue Lights and Balcony Dancing, and it was so funny that, Kelley looked back on 25-year-old Kelley stuff because at that point, 541 Productions, Acting Out Studios was like, hey, we want you to write monologues for our demo reels. And I'm like, oh my God, I have this whole one-woman play, and there's just going to be so much. And then when I read it, I went, I think out of this whole 70, 80 page, I might be able to pick about 4 or 5 monologues. A lot of toilet humor, which surprised me for me. That was not what I usually did, but I went, yeah, I can't, So I was glad older me was able to look younger me in the eye and go, there was a reason why this didn't get produced and it ends up being a good thing, and that's okay. But you kept creating, and now I have lots of scripts and things like that. But it is interesting when you look back on what your younger self was looking at and how they viewed themselves. It's very insightful.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, no, I just thank you for allowing me to share this. I just, again, as I say, I just was rummaging around, looking through old writings and poetry and essays and prose and scripts and all that stuff I had written. And I mean, I've got probably literally a couple of feet thick of paper of stuff that I was just going through it. And I went, oh, I remember you, and here you are. So, thank you guys for indulging me.
And, I would say creative prompt for this week, take the time to create something new for yourself. Again, you got your phone. You can do a funny voice on your microphone. Do that or write something. But give yourself some time, especially because, the holidays, it can get so stressful. And if you don't take that time for yourself, you might be talking to yourself the way Max was talking to himself. And don't do that. Sit there and pat yourself on the back and go, hey, that thing you created, cool, and it's leading to a bunch of other ideas. Yay, me. That's the kind of self-talk you want to do, is the yay, me. But as I said, that piece right there, that speaks to so many people about so many things. So thank you for sharing that with us.
You're very welcome. Thank you for indulging me.
We appreciate you guys tuning in, and keep in mind that you can catch us on our social media, Creative Actors Lab on Instagram and Facebook, and by the same name on YouTube. And for more on what we do, you can go to our website,
creativeactorslab.com, all one word. Thank you for listening. Stay curious, make art, world. Much love until next time.